You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WYBC. Very good to have you this evening. I hope you are ready for quite a full day of news because we started off with a bang. That being the President of the United States, who had to do a quick 180 in the Air Force One plane, land back in the United States for what had been an electrical issue, then turned back around and headed over to Switzerland. So a sleepless night for a lot of people. The President of the United States then got up and did one of the top 5 things Americans enjoy, giving the middle finger to Europeans. Now, that is, believe it or not the biggest piece of news during the day because the markets were roiling over the president's comments regarding Greenland and saying, well, you're going to find out whether the United States was going to move into Greenland or not, make a big, huge buyout package. The White House had put a couple of things together. There were leaks in a few select places that had wildly different stories. And then the foreign complaints reached an all-time high. And we'll get to those. But the biggest news is that the President of the United States has now made an announcement that based on a very productive meeting that I've had with Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect February 1st, pause quote. The President of the United States had made some suggestions that if Europe was going to get, what's the right word here, uppity, feeling their oats, getting a little big for their European britches, that maybe the United States would, slap a couple of tariffs on the table. And then you had the EU staff get up and say, well, maybe we're going to start working with India. And we started to get into trade war territory land. Well, now the president has announced that because there have been some, frameworks for a deal put into place, we'll get into some of those details here in a second, the tariffs are not going to go into effect on February 1st. This caused the price of gold to drop. Nothing causes the price of gold to drop. Gold started creeping ever higher in the announcement of what could be another year of kind of awkward diplomatic trade wars between the United States and other countries. Gold has now dropped because it appears, also futures are starting to look up a little bit as well, that an off-ramp between the United States and the Danish coalition might have been met. So continuing the president's quote, additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others as needed will be responsible for the negotiations and will report directly to me. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So there are 3 really good things in this particular message. The 2 of these very good things are Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio handling the negotiations directly. That is a very, very, very good thing. Very good. Those are 2 are very good things because whenever the President of the United States delegates particular tasks to individuals who have previously shown themselves competent, things go a lot better than the president's negotiating style. Now, for a quick reminder of the terms going into Greenland, the United States had, according to previous treaties, the ability to build U.S. bases in select regions in Greenland that were allowed to have a certain number of troops and staff. This particular new potential agreement between the United States and Greenland, according to a statement from a NATO spokesperson, Allison, suggested that Greenland, Denmark, and the United States would outline certain, quote, small pockets of land. This is the phrase that is currently being used from Reuters to your aunt posting about this on Facebook. The suggestion, small pockets of land are going to be set up that would be perhaps exclusively controlled by the United States beyond just a base lease agreement. Now, whether or not that means that the United States gets exclusive mineral rights, I would assume that if the United States is given asset control over parcels of land, then this would give the United States access to rare earth minerals, which is something that Greenland has, again, the scientific term is heaps and heaps of. So, if the President of the United States intended this from the beginning, then it's a good thing. This would be an indication of what some would call the Trump cycle. He gets out there, as he's done every single time he negotiates for the last 30 years, and says, I want the moon. In fact, I want all of the moon. I want all of the lemons in the world. I want all the lemons on the moon. And I'm not going to stop until the United States gets the largest amount of lemons on the moon you've ever seen before. And then CNN and MSNBC and everyone gets out there and says, lemons on the moon, the president's crazy. How could you possibly get this? And then the president ends up getting a piece of middle ground in which he gets something more than he had, but may not have accomplished if he didn't go out as bombastically as the president has done. Now, am I saying that's what happened here? No, I'm not saying that's what happened here. The president clearly wants all of Greenland. We don't have that particular piece of information in front of us yet. But here is a statement from the chair of NATO, the head of NATO, I should say, Secretary General Mark Rutte, the guy who I would say is the president's best ally when it comes to European affairs.
So statements from me will not add anything here. And when it comes to the Arctic, I think President Trump is right. Other leaders in NATO are right. We need to defend the Arctic. We know that the sea lanes are opening up. We know that China and Russia are increasingly active in the Arctic. There are 8 countries bordering on the Arctic. 7 are a member of NATO. That's Finland and Sweden and Norway and Denmark, Iceland, Canada and the US. And there's only 1 country bordering on the Arctic outside NATO, and that's Russia. And I would argue there is a 9th country, which is China, which is increasingly active in the Arctic region. So President Trump and other leaders are right. We have to do more there. We have to protect the Arctic against Russian and Chinese influence. And that's exactly what NATO ambassadors decided to do in September. We are working on that, making sure that collectively we will defend the Arctic region.
Now, there are 2 key things here that are important regarding the United States' interests in Greenland. First and foremost, obviously, it is important to remember that if you look at the map of the world, no, not the map of the world, meaning the big flat rectangle, Mercator projection. When you look at a map of the world in which the United States and Russia are across from each other over the Arctic Ocean, Greenland is right in the center of that particular map projection. And if the United States were to have a Golden Dome defense system, a lot like Israel's, probably bigger, then expanding the amount of infrastructure defensively that the United States places in Pituffik Space Base in Greenland would be important. However, there is a second piece to this. There is a significant cost, and there are things that the United States needs. Gaining mineral access rights from Greenland and then manufacturing from Taiwan into the United States makes it a lot more difficult for example, China to hold a large-scale military threat against the country for a prolonged period of time. Now, there's a particular argument that's been made, a study, a simulation from some of the folks over at the Heritage Foundation, arguing that the United States would not survive a prolonged war with China because we would run out of a lot of resources in 30 days, whereas China wouldn't start running out of those particular resources until about 100 days. For a couple of reasons, I'm not sure I completely agree with this simulated assessment, but this would be mineral access right expansion. This would be a key piece of expanding the American national defense infrastructure, meaning that the United States could be self-sufficient in certain national security measures for a long period of time, a very long period of time. And as one of the comments accurately points out, Rob, yes, given that China has expanded its influence into Canada full force, Greenland does in fact have a significant piece of importance. So that said, there is a flub moment of the day in which the president of the United States appeared to confuse Greenland and Iceland, not Thailand, not Finland, but Greenland and Iceland are right next to each other as they are. And the internet and the media ran with this, like, signs of Trump dementia, things like that. Here's the president of the United States, again, confusing Greenland for Iceland in like one sentence today.
I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. But that dip is peanuts compared to what it's gone up.
So the president, again, the statement that the president had made earlier regarding Greenland is, it's just a small piece of ice. Give us the piece of ice. crushed ice in the Diet Coke. Greenland, just a small piece of ice, seems to be what led to him to say Iceland in this particular case. Now, just as a small thing that makes me laugh, there is, when you look at the history of Greenland and Iceland, as is pointed out by Bill Wirtz in his very famous The History of the World in 10 Minutes or Less, worth showing.
Northerners, or just Norse if you don't have much time, are exploring. They go north, from the north to the northern north, and they find some land, two types of land.
Two types of land, green and ice. And then they name them accordingly. Nope. Greenland is full of ice. Iceland is full of green. Sorry, just a little fun Bill Wirtz thing there. Radio crew, we got to send you off to commercial before the FCC slaps me with a fine. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of this breaking news over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, reporters took no time at all to try to weasel in and make jabs that the president had announced some kind of deal here. And, you know, may I say, it didn't go particularly well for the reporter trying to, I would say there's reading between the lines, then there's just reading in your imagination. Here's that moment today.
Mr. President, the Danish foreign minister rejected your call to negotiate on Greenland. What will...
I didn't call him.
No, sorry. The Danish foreign minister rejected what you said in your speech, that you were hoping to negotiate to acquire Greenland, essentially saying that this is not something that they are willing to discuss. So what will those negotiations
Well, they
look
didn't
like?
tell me that, so when they tell me, because I don't like getting it secondhand. If he wants to tell me, he'll tell me that to my face.
I enjoy that. I do. So the Danish foreign minister rejected your call. I didn't call him. The reporter's like, oh, sorry, I don't know where I got that. The brilliant journalism is always afoot.
When will you be discussing this?
I have no idea.
When you said you
I'll be discussing it with this man right here.
Mr. President,
He's frankly more important.
So other World Economic Forum things that are worth mentioning very quickly. Gavin Newsom also followed the president of the United States to the World Economic Forum and was talking with reporters and getting all spicy, suggesting that other European countries needed to stand up to Donald Trump because he's a T-Rex and he wants to mate with you. Now, that's a weird thing to say, but that doesn't stop Gavin Newsom. Here you go.
Do you have a message for Europeans who are concerned about the messages from the White House around Greenland this week?
Yeah, it's time to buck up. It's time to get serious and stop being complicit. It's time to stand tall and firm, have a backbone. I've seen this in the United States, the supine Congress playing both sides, say one thing on a text or a tweet and another publicly. It's time to have...
Oh man, he says one thing in a text or tweet and then another thing publicly? What? You mean someone might say something publicly and then act differently in the diplomatic side? No. Gasp. The horror.
Principle. It's time to stand tall and strong.
Does that mean responding with
tariffs? Time to stand united.
Time to stand. Straw and tong. Gavin Newsom. Brilliant quote.
You make that determination. I don't make that determination.
But when you say standing tall, what do you mean?
Just, I can't take this complicity. People rolling over. I should have brought a bunch of knee pads for all the world leaders. I mean, handing out crowns and this is pathetic. Nobel Prizes that are being given away. I mean, it's just pathetic. And I hope people understand how pathetic they look on the world stage. I mean, at least from an American perspective, it's embarrassing.
So what should Europe be doing?
You should decide, the Europeans should decide for themselves what to do. But one thing they can't do is what they've been doing. And they've been playing. This guy is playing folks for fools. And it's embarrassing.
Europeans think this is diplomacy and this will ultimately
this is
work.
Diplomacy with Donald Trump? He's a T-Rex. You mate with him or he devours you. One or the other.
And Europe's being
people need to stand, but no.
I love the Europeans are like, what are you talking about? So what's your message for Europeans? So Gavin Newsom comes in, he's like, Europeans need to stand up. They need to do something. And they're like, what should we do? They need to decide for themselves. Well, they've decided that they're going to try this diplomatic angle where they negotiate and kind of argue some things out. And Newsom's like, well, if you think about it, it's like mating with a T-Rex. That's some good stuff there. Thank you, Gavin Newsom, stellar. Now, I do want to point out here the response from the President of the United States. This is according to a Politico exclusive. he was alerted at the 11th hour that his Davos talk, Newsom was supposed to get up and give a big speech. It was canceled. So like right before he's supposed to go up and speak, they're like, yeah, no one's letting you speak because you don't have the authority to speak on behalf of the United States. We got to bring the radio crew back in. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Very, very good to be with you because right now, here in this beautiful United States of America, things are getting a little bit spicier, perhaps, than some might enjoy. Now, this comes from a couple of things and a couple of reasons here. First and foremost, the federal ruling in Immigration Customs Enforcement policy and allowance is essentially flipping back and forth like a light switch. So on January 19th, a federal judge, Catherine Menendez, had blocked federal agents from retaliating against those protesting or observing the activities of Operation Metro Surge. I appreciate the use of completely flubbing how you report on that. The individuals who are rioting, they said that ICE isn't allowed to touch them. Also had blocked ICE from arresting or detaining people who aren't committing a crime or obstructing agents. Yeah, there haven't been any people that have been arrested without having committed a crime yet that we found. They also were banned from using chemical irritants and other crowd dispersal tools, and then against those peacefully protesting or observing. Stopping or detaining drivers and passengers of vehicles who are not forcibly obstructing or interfering with federal agents. So this is a pretty serious issue because federal agents being told they cannot uphold federal law, and then a bunch of really vague terms like, oh, well, everyone who's not committing a crime. Well, yeah, but if ICE suspects that there is an individual who is committing a crime, or they are dealing with someone who is actively obstructing, or someone who might be a threat about to commit a crime actively, someone driving your vehicle at the officer, for example, that would be a moment to act. And so federal agents here attempting to carry out federal law and then being stymied, that's obviously a significant issue. So today, this afternoon specifically, an 8th Circuit Appeal Court ruling has put an administrative stay halting these restrictions on ICE agents. So now the Department of Justice has again given the green light to the Department of Homeland Security to continue using whichever means that they need to do in order to at least attempt to address the situation in Minneapolis. Now, there are a couple of other ICE operations that are starting to pick up into full swing. The New York Times is reporting that ICE is also being deployed to Maine in order to investigate Somali fraud. But in Minneapolis itself, things are starting to get perhaps a little bit spicier. So this begins, as often things do, with individuals just saying, I don't care if I'm allowed or not allowed to do this. ICE, you are not allowed to come in this place of business. The latest example of this is a speedway in Minneapolis. This footage from Cam Higbee. The Greg Bavino, one of the commanders of Border Patrol, was thrown out of a speedway. And even though corporate policy from Speedway is not to get involved in these kind of things, the decision was made, hey, well, anyway, we're just going to go ahead and do this. And if anyone doesn't like it, like that's too bad kind of a thing. And this deteriorated pretty quickly after because people saw the footage, saw that Greg Bavino was out there. And then we got into some rowdiness between the crowd and Immigration Customs Enforcement a little bit later. So people doing some assaulting of federal law enforcement responding with a healthy reminder that you don't have a right to obstruct federal law enforcement. So just wonderful, cheery stuff happening in Minneapolis. Now, this is also worth noting here. There are buses that are being recorded pulling up outside the Whipple Federal Building and dropping protesters off. So as to the argument that these are all like grassroots, magical, like impromptu kinds of protests, here you see vehicles pulling up and dropping off large groups of individuals to participate in you know, these mostly peaceful protests. Now, there are two reports that are, I would say, slightly conflicting with each other at the moment. MS Now, MSNBC, has reported earlier today that the Pentagon ordered, in addition to the paratroopers that were kind of put on standby over in Alaska, active duty military police soldiers based in North Carolina to prepare for possible deployment to Minneapolis. And they say that was according to 3 people familiar with the matter. That would be about, I'd say, a couple of platoons of military police that would be put on standby for possible mobilization to Minneapolis. There was also the conflicting report that North Carolina National Guard military police, which is slightly different, is inbound to the Minneapolis area. We don't have any confirmation of this yet. National Guard military police are different from active U.S. Army military police stationed in North Carolina. Just want a little bit more clarity here before we confirm anything on those lines. What we can confirm is that Tim Walz is very, very, very grumpy. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, from behind his gated community, so I guess like the neighbor from Home Improvement, is on his tiptoes, encouraging the crowd to cause, quote, good trouble, end quote. Here's Tim Walz.
Gwen, Gus, I, and all the friends that come to see Gus, thank you for coming out in the cold, but more importantly, thank you for standing up. Thank you for standing up for our neighbors who don't have a fence and don't have people to take them around and don't have lawyers to defend them. And for every single person who... Oh, there's a bullhorn. Oh, here we go. All right. Yeah, that's good. And on behalf of Gwen, I, and Gus, it's so nice to see people out here not angry with us.
So he gets handed like a little teal bullhorn, which is kind of funny. And then he proceeds to tell the crowd to like get out there and like, you know, get out there and defend your neighbors, intervene, obstruct.
People identifying, and there's a lot of people saying, okay, I was sleeping on Minnesota. And I think what you've done and what our neighbors are going through to see this, and I oftentimes told this story, I served on the China Commission in Congress.
That's a lot of words that you just said that you probably shouldn't have said. So first of all, he begins by saying, he addresses the criticism that maybe he slept on the situation in Minnesota. That has been a criticism that has been levied at him by Minnesota state legislators, both Republican and Democrat, based on the huge amounts, the billions of dollars in fraud, much of it centered around the Somali migrant community. And he responds to that by saying, well, let me tell you, I served on the China Committee in Congress.
Ironically enough, as co-chair with Marco Rubio.
So he's like, I served in co-chair with Marco Rubio on China. And then the crowd goes, oh, yes, okay.
Political prisoners. And we would ask them, when we speak up and call out your government, is it bad? And they said, well, in the short run, it's bad because they torture us. But if you don't speak up, they will torture us and forget about us.
Okay, so he makes the claim that China is arresting people as political prisoners, and then they're left in prison and they're forgotten about. He is comparing that to ICE. That is what he's trying to say, and then also put himself in there too because of the big fraud investigation and also the obstructing federal law enforcement angle. That doesn't work. The reason that doesn't work for Walz, just in part here, number one, because people being detained, arrested in the United States, not for political reasons. People being arrested in the United States and are being put in temporary facilities to have immigration trials are then being kicked out of the country. China's not kicking people out of the country. Communist countries don't let you leave. I don't know if you were quite aware of that particular piece of history. Number two, the argument that this is just like China doing so, coming from the mouth of Tim Walz, who argued that it was China that needed to be the new international standard for peace in the world just a couple of months ago, is bizarre beyond bizarre. Now, we got to send the radio crew off to commercial. We're going to get into some of the other attacks, pepper spray, tear gassing, and this tear gassing a baby story that fell on its face today. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast live stream crew. We're going to continue. Radio crew, see you in a second. All right, while they're off in la commercial land. So again, there's additional pepper sprayings, people FAing and FOing over in Minneapolis. So this one lady decides it's time to, Mortal Kombat fist fight with federal law enforcement. She finds out that the aerosol liquid inside those cans is not perhaps Visine. Heads up, heads up. Boom, boom. All right, you want to see that in slow motion? I got you. Boom. Incredible. Incredible. A lot of good stuff here. And then, of course, the tear gassing, just showing the federal judge who thought she could say no, all of the yes that could in fact happen. It's like a motivational speech up in this house. Oh, sorry, that was the agent. Little tear gassing in. Here you go. Now, that annoying noise that you're hearing are all of the individuals blowing rape whistles, which has become kind of the sword of truth for the protesters and rioters in Minneapolis.
Oh, it is gas.
Fuck you! Fuck out of my goddamn city!
That FU that you heard was a little bit raspy because he, as someone who's enjoyed a nice, delicious lungful or two of tear gas and things, I'd like to remind y'all that you have to shout something. Normally it's your name and your pay number, but shouting FU, I guess, can work. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Now, in the rest of the country, in California this morning, an illegal alien human smuggler from El Salvador who had a final deportation order and prior arrests, don't they all, attempted to kill federal agents with his vehicle. Agents acted in self-defense and opened fire. These actions have really upset the utmost defender of illegal immigrants and criminals in this country, that being Senator Chris Van Hollen, the man who is known to sip margaritas, or at least water, with the famous Maryland man down in El Salvador himself. Here's Senator Chris Van Hollen losing his marbles.
One of the things that gives me great hope, even amidst all of this division and chaos sown by Donald Trump, are the patriots in places like Minneapolis who are standing up, blowing whistles to protect their neighbors, blowing whistles on the illegal tactics of ICE. And I was just at a rally in Hagerstown, Maryland today. Hundreds of people coming out because ICE has signaled that they might use a facility in Hagerstown for their purposes. And people were coming out to say no.
That's so brave. It's stunning. Exciting stuff. So that's kind of the new move here. And this brings us to one particular story I wanted to mention. The ABC News ran with this on the 16th. There was a lot of social media outrage. This argument that a family had just been driving home from a basketball game when they were viciously, brutally pepper sprayed and tear gassed. Their baby was tear gassed by ICE. Here was ABC News running with this story.
We're learning more about another dangerous incident involving ICE. A family says 3 of their children, including a 6-month-old, were hospitalized after agents reportedly fired tear gas at their vehicle. Destiny Jackson says they were on their way home from a basketball game when gas grenades set off the airbags, trapping them inside as gas filled the car. After people nearby helped open the doors, she says they realized their infant had stopped breathing. Destiny says she had to perform CPR to revive her own child.
Now, there's a bit of a problem with this story. The outrage was immense. We're going to cover it when the radio crew comes back in. People saying, oh, they're awful. This is the Nazis. They're tear gassing. They're gassing babies. I knew they were going to do this. Stick around. We're going to dig into this. There's a few holes in it, as usual. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening, everybody.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast, where, again, Immigration Customs Enforcement has been accused of all kinds of violent domestic terrorism, of being the Gestapo, etc. The most recent, the gassing of babies, supposedly. Again, ABC News had run with the story. This family was just coming home from a basketball game. The car was attacked by ICE. The airbags went off. People had to help them out. The baby wasn't breathing. The mother had to perform CPR. And this was clear-cut evidence that ICE was the Nazis. We knew they were. They were just gassing families coming home from basketball games. Well, according to new footage, nope. So the very first thing that happened, a GoFundMe was set up, support the Jackson family after the ICE incident. Almost $200,000 was raised for them. Well, additional footage now, looking at the protests in which the tear gassing took place, show that the mom and the dad parked their vehicle, left their baby in the vehicle, and then got out to join the protest. They didn't come from a basketball game just trying to get home. This particular family left their baby in the SUV. And then the couple, according to these videos, got out and did themselves a little protesting. I'm just making the case. Don't bring your children to protests. Now, this has been encouraged. Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, Minneapolis. Hey, yeah, bring them on out. Make it a whole family affair. Using children as human shields is disgusting. Leaving your child in a vehicle so you can go blow on a rape whistle is also disgusting. Amazing. Just like the Renee Good situation, you always find additional footage that suggests quite a bit of nonsense that wasn't previously reported. Speaking of that nonsense, the international community is still trying to put up a very tough face against the Trump administration, and they are saying some things that are getting them quite a lot of blowback from fellow European countries. So the president of Finland today made the case, trying to act all tough, and said that Europe didn't need the United States to fight Russia at all. Europe didn't need the United States to do anything at all. Immediately, members of the European Union as well as other Scandinavian countries, essentially told the president of Finland to shut his big fat mouth.
First is a direct answer to the question of this panel, can Europe defend itself? My answer is unequivocally yes.
Without the Americans?
Without the Americans, I mean...
How?
Well, look...
But you're relying on them for these key elements. How would you do it at scale and at duration and at intensity?
With an assumption that the United States would cut off completely any kind of work.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at the defense composure of Europe by and large, and a country like Finland...
Oh boy, here he goes.
So how do we do it? We have conscription.
We're going to call up the draft, okay? Good start. All right. I've seen the population of Finland these days. I don't know how that's going to go for you there, Chief. This ain't exactly the Winter War. Men aren't made from thick enough stuff as they used to be in Finland back in the day.
Million have done it. We can mobilize 280,000 soldiers within weeks.
Okay, 280,000 soldiers. All righty.
We have 62 F-18s. Your next question is going to be...
62 F-18. 62 F... I mean, gee whiz, boys and girls. 62 entire F-18s. Incredible. Incredible. Why? I mean, that's almost enough to field a couple of 100 square miles of sky in an active war zone, maybe?
They fly without Americans. No, they don't. But do we trust that they will continue to fly because it's in the interest of America to do so? Yes.
So now so then he says, okay, well, maybe we don't have 68 pilots ready to go. And even if we did, maybe they've only trained with Americans and they don't actually know how to fly on their own. Would they still continue to fly and be fine? Totally, yes, they would.
We just bought 64 F-35s. We have the biggest artillery in Europe together with Poland. We have long-range missiles, land, sea, and air. We don't have these because we're worried about Stockholm, right?
They have far fewer intercontinental or just even short-range ballistic missiles than the United States does at any active zone military installation. The entire country. So again, other Europeans have come out since and was like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Incredible. The arrogance and the pride of individuals who do not realize how much they rely on the United States for everything. Another great example of this is Macron, who showed up wearing aviators. The rumor being that he was drunk or that, Bridget is just so annoying that he didn't get any sleep on the flight over. So he shows up in aviators as though he is very hungover, and starts lecturing everyone about how China's much better anyway.
China is welcome, but what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe in some key sectors to contribute to our growth, to transfer some technologies, and not just to export towards Europe some devices or products which sometimes don't have the same standards or are much more subsidized as the one being produced in Europe.
That is freaking hilarious, and here's why. The idea that Macron is suggesting in contrast says, well, China just needs to give us money. Give me money. Give me the money. That's not how it works unless you're talking about the United States. The United States, after the Marshall Plan, was like, it is in the best interests of the free world that we help Europe rebuild because it's a crater. And then Europe got really used to this idea that the United States was going to take care of it. And they just got fat and lazy living off of the defense of the United States that it continually pumped into Europe, subsidizing not just European defense, but European industry as a whole. The reason that Germany and France exist as economic powers is because of the United States. Period, bar none. And then his answer that when the United States isn't willing to just give him everything anymore and then let France flip us off from their burning churches or their mosques, is it, well, then fine, maybe we will go to China and say, China, give me the money. Guys, China doesn't just give money. China expects things in return. I introduce you to the Belt and Road Initiative, in which China will subsidize and develop some things in your country, sure, for a price. And then they'll move in their Chinese police stations and they'll police your citizens and they'll slowly take over your country. Says who? Says Beijing. They're very open about this. I like the idea of new technology coming in from China. China has second wave technology that is stolen from the United States. The entire history of Huawei, their major cell phone provider, Huawei used to have its entire development division was just embedding foreign agents at places like Cisco and Dell and IBM and sending over blueprints back to Beijing. China invents nothing. In fact, normally what happens with regard to Chinese industry is that the communists will get access to something that the United States or another country in the Western world has created, whether it be a bio-infrastructural piece of information like mRNA editing in the biotechnology sphere, whether it be AI, whether it be fighter design, they will take it and then they will break it because they don't understand how it works. They can't reverse engineer anything worth a huadong. So then it messes up and then it ends up infecting half of China and the rest of the world, or it collapses and accidentally reveals a ton of Chinese tech infrastructure to the West through, for example, their DeepSeek AI program, which was an amazing backdoor for the rest of the world. Or Huawei, when the United States backdoored through all of Huawei because of some stupid Iranian scientists who left their computers unlocked. This is something incredible that the rest of the world does not quite yet understand. That subsisting off of the United States is not a gravy train that can carry on forever. Now, Mark Carney over in Canada has not yet figured this out. And he's also courting China. He said, well, I tell you what there, if President Trump isn't going to give us everything, then I tell you what, sorry, then we're just going to have to go with the Chinese and import all of their brilliant electric vehicles then there. Here's Mark Carney.
It's been 8 years since a Canadian Prime Minister visited China. And this is a relationship that has been distant and uncertain for nearly a decade. That has held back investment, it's stalled business growth, and cost Canadian workers good opportunities. And that's why Canada's new government began to recalibrate our relationship with China. Through periods of global tension and disruption, we've created more opportunities for our workers, businesses, and investors by working together. That's the opportunity before us now.
So there are a lot of individuals out there making the case that this is a wonderful, amazing, great, boon for Canada. Just like the Belt and Road Initiative, this is going to come with a series of hooks and barbs. China is already trying very desperately to become embedded in Canada. And as according to every piece of data and every metric that we have, the country with the most vehicle failures per capita is China. China has more vehicle failures per year than India, than any African or Middle Eastern nation. Chinese vehicles are horrible. You're going to import those by the ton over to Canada? Those ticking electric vehicle time bombs? All right. Best of luck to you. You're going to succeed in one thing, which is helping Alberta secede and declare independence. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to commercial and continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. The biggest question that we've received, that many Americans have asked, to be quite frank with you, is what is the Trump administration going to do about this? I was going to make the case before the Greenland announcement today that the President of the United States and his staff, specifically Secretary of State Marco Rubio, are going to continue reminding the rest of the world that you do not simply get to flip off the United States and her people and then turn around and expect us to just give you everything, hand you free, wonderful gifts. If you are going to take our money, then you will serve American interests. This was my entire argument revolving around USAID. USAID was built for the President of the United States to have a personal bribery account in the Cold War, so that while the Soviets were trying to bribe other countries to work with the Soviets, President John F. Kennedy had USAID, and he would say, hey, I know you really want to get out there and do something for the Soviets, but what if I gave you a couple of $1 million? And then USAID, was then used as an apparatus for the president to essentially bribe other countries to work with us for the benefit of Americans as opposed to the Soviets. Over time, it became a way for the United States to produce left-leaning social movements around the world, often at the direct negative impact to the United States. The issue is not USAID. The issue is how it's used. I'm going to level with you. I'm sorry. I'm an American imperialist. I think that the United States should do whatever it damn well pleases. I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel bad. I don't believe in the idea of nation building, that we go in and we spend our blood and our treasure, and then we expect nothing in return. We just set up a democracy, and that's going to be the new world order. That's a stupid idea. It was dumb when George H.W. Bush put it into power. It was dumb when Bill Clinton and his son George W. Bush and then Barack Obama believed it. It's bad for foreign policy. At the same time, it's also bad to view the world as this isolationist idea that we have to hide in the United States. No, Teddy Rooseveltian foreign policy, in which the United States says, okay, maybe we'll invest in you. Maybe we'll develop something here, but you got to give us something in return. The American people have to benefit. I'm not just going to build a hotel over there and put my name on it and not get anything back. It's called a little give and take. That is, in fact, a totally perfectly normal and fine foreign policy. And the rest of the world is going to learn, come hell or high water. That is how the United States operates. You say, Tony, how do you know this? Because before the era of the Cold War, this was the entire United States ethos. Manifest destiny, Pax Americana. We expand, and if we don't like what you are doing in our hemisphere, and you get real stupid and maybe blow up the Maine, we will go to war and end your global empire, or what's left of it in the case of Spain. We were able to broker every border deal in the Southern Hemisphere for the United Kingdom for a period of 45 years in a row before the World Wars. The United States, when it became the rising to the top of the world power, it utilized American resources for investment, but it also guaranteed returns, or it shut the door. And that is something that, to be completely honest with you, I think it's I won't apologize for that. We're going to swing it over to the commercial break one more time, pick up the live stream crew, and then dig into some of the good stuff. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Oh, you want to know what the fools believe? Here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, I got you. In fact, we have some of the dumbest things anyone has ever said in all of human history. Right now, you know what's going on around you. There are a lot of Americans that are looking over their shoulder, a lot of Americans that are keeping an eye on their neighborhoods. And Jasmine Crockett has stepped forth to announce that the biggest issue right now isn't what's going on in Minnesota. It isn't the markets. It isn't the, weather around the country, the huge cases of fraud. It's that apparently all of these people of color have been getting lynched, and you didn't even know it. As of right now, the leading Senate Democrat candidate for the Senate in Texas announcing the lynching epidemic. Here you go, Jasmine Crockett.
They not even going, honestly, they're about to outlaw the idea of white supremacy and white hate. Like, they are about to be like, oh, that's not a thing.
Okay, really quick. Allison on the WIBC board, might want to have your hand on the dump button. Sometimes she gets a little spicy and uses the FCC unfriendly words. But anywho, her argument so far, they're going to outlaw saying that something is white supremacist or racist. Okay.
Forget the fact that you're talking about getting rid of like the classification for nooses in a time in which we have seen these random black bodies be strung up down south.
Where? What are you talking about? The only one that comes to mind, and I've looked through some of the news cycle information here. Not seeing it. Not seeing it at all. There was a suicide in which an individual hung himself who was black, but his own family has come forward and like, yeah, he was struggling with this for a long time. It was a suicide. What are you talking about? What lynchings are you? What are you talking about? Where's this going on? Folks down in Georgia, down in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, all the way over to the Texarkana, basically the entire area of the South through which the bandit made his brilliant run to bring Coors Light to the fine people of Atlanta. Have you seen any of this? Please let us know. Apparently, they're just, it's like a puppeteering act down there, just like everybody's going up on ropes and strings.
Also, seemingly at a time in which you're back in office, because what you do is you embolden the hate. You embolden everybody to take off their hoods. That is what he has done. He is the one that is producing this violence.
Now, I can't help but notice that over the last couple of weeks, people getting out there and making consistent arguments that it's ICE who needs to be killed. For example, there's a guy who looks as though he just came out of a meth trailer in that really like awkward little stub of Arkansas. We're on the air in Little Rock. You guys know the one I'm talking about. That little meth region, right next to Missouri. There's a dude who looks like that. Picture it in your mind. Picture the Somalian fraudster, but paler than snow. Slightly bulbous head, kind of looks like Megamind. You know what I'm talking about. From Akron, Ohio, threatening to shoot ICE agents. We were not able to play this audio on the show because he thinks they are terrorists. So as for emboldening violence right now, I'm just not seeing that from the Trump administration at all. Meanwhile, you have people like Ted Lieu of California, representative, who has now come out and started giving the illegal order conversation again. Here you go.
I served on active duty in the military for 4 years and then additional 21 years in the reserves. I was a JAG. There is absolutely no legal justification whatsoever to use military force against a NATO ally, against Greenland. And if any military member, including the generals on down to...
Including the generals on down. Who else is there in the military? From the generals on down, any member, including, that would be all of them, bud.
Enlisted members, if any of them participate in the use of military force against Greenland without congressional authorization, they are following illegal orders.
Okay, not necessarily, no. In fact, the United States, if you opened a book, the United States, 13 times in the last 10 years, has utilized what would be considered military action against a NATO ally. I was in Turkey one of the times when the United States did. I was in the country of Turkey, NATO ally, in which the United States acted in what could be considered a military ordered action. I was not one of the individuals in the military action. I was an observer. I watched it happen. The United States ordered an action against a NATO ally. The idea that Congress has to approve everything under the sun against anyone connected to NATO, no, that's dumb. That's stupid. That's not how it works. And by the way, if you get out there and you order and you issue legal advice, you say, as a lawyer, as a JAG, as someone out there as a legal expert, here's what you should do. You are putting yourself in a position where you are liable for lawsuits concerning that advice. You cannot just go out there and give very personalized and specific military, legal, or financial advice to individuals, especially in the military. We have laws just for that. Don't be dumb. That's my personal advice to you. Cite it in court. Don't be dumb. Neat idea. Cool. Nifty, in fact. Now, this does bring us over to the larger social sphere. There are other people. You guys, I know you hate it when we play clips from The View, but given that it is half the voting demographic over on the left, it's important. Pam Grier, a musician and actress over on The View, has announced that she has seen some of these lynchings and things going around. She's seen this kind of stuff. So I guess Jasmine Crockett confirmed. Exciting stuff. Here we go.
You faced a lot of racism growing up in Columbus, Ohio. How did that shape you?
Columbus, Ohio. Okay, now that's a twist.
Whew. Well, the military wouldn't allow black families to live on the base, so you had to live in an apartment, and you couldn't take a bus. You couldn't afford a car. You walked. Your dads walked to the base, and sometimes we would go from tree shade to get back to the apartment. My brother and I, my mom, with bags. And my mom would go, don't look, don't look, don't look. And she'd pull us away. Wow. Because there is someone hanging from a tree.
Hanging from the tree in Columbus, Ohio? Radio crew, we got to see you. Sorry, it's the end of the time slot. We'll catch you later. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. Oh, sorry, almost missed that FCC clock. I was just shocked by this. She's making the case that she saw people hanging in Columbus, black families. The last known lynching of any sort around Columbus, Ohio, was like 130, 140 years ago. So this is a really weird way to announce that you're in your 150s. I gotta say, that's looking pretty good for 150. Additionally, as far as Columbus, Ohio, not allowing black families to live on base, that also wasn't a thing when she was growing up. Now, she's 76 years old, but from what we can find, based on the actual policy, she's just lying. She's just making things up specifically. I'm sorry, pretending like Columbus, Ohio is like pre-Civil War South. No, not the case. I'm sorry, you're a liar. It is a wrong thing to do, to get up and announce that. That encourages violence. That absolutely encourages violence. Now, of course, they're taking their cues from the finest of the finest. Michelle Obama, of course, has made it perfectly clear that she's very racist when it comes to how she conducts her shopping and her business.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. Right. I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. What does our closet look like and who's in it? Mm-hmm. Who are we supporting in it? Right. And I think if you have the money to buy Chanel, then you have the money to buy everybody. Right. And so let us be mindful, I think would be my advice. Yeah.
Michelle Obama coming out and saying that she makes it a point only to buy from black-owned businesses is really, really weird. I've got a hot take here. Buy clothes that look good and that you think look good. And don't worry too much about the color of the skin of the person who made the clothing. Maybe just, hey, this is what looks good. It's such a privileged thing to say. And I'm saying this as someone who I believe this shirt and this jacket. This jacket I think is actually from our previous pastor when we went to church in Greenfield. And the shirt I believe I grabbed over from Goodwill. Again, you don't have to thrift. I do because I'm on camera. I need a lot of different jackets and shirts to kind of shake it up. So I do some thrifty stuff. I don't have the budget to go buy insanely expensive clothing, but if you do, get what looks good. Don't sit there and go, oh, well, this color right over here. And got to be careful. If they're hanging the black owned clothes, Jasmine Crockett's liable to say that's like seamstress lynching or something. All right. That said and aside, the entire social media in general illegal immigrant ICE argument right now has now entered the area of extra stupid, even more stupid than the lynching argument, believe it or not. So some parent pointed her phone at her child and asked why he was crying and then posted this on social media. So shall we all partake together?
Tell me again what the other player told you during games.
So the goalkeeper in futsal, he said some really bad stuff to me, and
the goalkeeper on the field, on the pitch, he said some really, really bad stuff to me. Okay, I'm expecting like some rough stuff here. All right.
it just made me get really emotional. I barely get emotional in soccer. And this guy told me I'm an illegal immigrant, even though I was born in America.
So this kid with an Iowa kind of shield crest on his soccer jersey here, the kid looked at him and said, "You're an illegal immigrant." And he responded, "I was born here." Now, some of you are already figuring out what the parent has a responsibility to tell their child here.
He said Trump is going to get me and send me back to where I used to live, and I was born in America. I don't live anywhere else. And then he called me an effing B word, and I just don't get why kids like to say those stuff. It makes me really sad that how they just control their power like that.
Control their power.
They have power.
This is the parents' fault. I hate to break it to you. That's the parents' fault. So let's take the extreme cases here. Let's do the old straw man and the steel man here. Let's say, just for the sake of this argument, their parent is an illegal immigrant. And as Tom Homan said, hey, well, we're going to keep families together. We're going to deport them together. And so ICE shows up and arrests the parent, for, they're an illegal immigrant. They deport them out of the country and they take their son with them. Okay. In that instance, it is absolutely the fault of the parent because you are living in the United States violating federal law. Why are you not a citizen of the United States? Why did you not immigrate here legally? That will be the steel man position. It is still their fault. Let's do the straw man now. If you are a parent who is a person living in the United States and your child starts crying to you, one of the things you have a responsibility to do as a parent is to take away all of the things in their fear that are not true. This is not difficult. Common sense. And the parent just filming their kid and saying, well, yeah, maybe this could happen to you. You are an awful, horrible human being to allow your child to believe things that are not true, especially those which cause them mortal fear. In addition to lying to them anyway. But again, at the end, they use their power like this. It's very clear that their parents are setting them up for a life in which this is the norm. And that's a terrible thing because it is from those instances in which people lash out and commit violent crimes. When you tell people they are up against the Nazis and the Gestapo and they're going to come to get you and they're going to kill you. When you tell people that, not from that child, that's not the first time he heard that. I guarantee you he heard that from his parents first. I would stake my reputation that, again, they use their power like that. He's heard that before. And again, showing that his parent just clipped that and threw it up on the internet for clicks and views. There you go. As one suspected. That is the kind of action and behavior that will lead to an individual, especially one who might have a mental illness, acting irrationally at some point and breaking into violence that results in the kind of thing like a school shooting or the situation we saw in Ohio a couple of years ago in which a bunch of students beat the living snot out of a child on an elementary school playground for refusing to raise their fist to the Black Lives Matter salute. And it's nonsense. It is absolute insufferable nonsense consistently to see this. So that aside, I want to move to one final thing that is really hilarious to me before we cover something I should have gotten to last night. So Cameron Kasky, he's a survivor of the Parkland shooting, and he decided to make a political advocacy side of his career. He's in the same vein as David Hogg and Kyle Kashuv. And Cameron Kasky decided to run for Congress, I believe, and that didn't work because just being an influencer online does not, in fact, qualify you or give you resources to run for Congress. No. So he failed at that. And then he goes on CNN. So he's in New York, goes on CNN on Abby Phillips' evening show, and he gets into a little of a conversation with Scott Jennings and the rest of the panel about illegal immigration. And so right off the bat, this is interesting enough, again, to see how the country views this kind of language surrounding this. He starts lecturing Scott as to what he calls those who are designated by the law illegal aliens.
I
You don't get to say the word illegals anymore.
And you
because
have.
the
I don't.
diverse, the percentage.
Who are you to tell me what I can and can't? I've never met you, brother. I can say whatever I want. If they're illegal aliens, and that's what the law calls them, illegal aliens, that's what I'm going to call them.
Right. Listen, you can't say illegals anymore because ICE is directly targeting legal citizens of this country. And how
are you going to enforce your edict on me, just out of curiosity?
Listen, I understand.
But just listen to his point about illegals.
No, I want to know why he gets to instruct
You're
my
changing the topic.
Hang on.
I want to know.
You're making a point about the people being arrested. I understand that your job is predicated on just getting increasingly more demented every single week, and that the audience comes back to see if perhaps
make your point.
My point is that you're saying the word illegals, but you don't even really know what's happening. Or actually, I think you do, and you're doing this on purpose. But
yes,
the truth
because
is,
I want the law enforced.
They are not just targeting illegal immigrants. They are targeting natural-born U.S. citizens.
They are not.
That is a fact. You cannot deny that. I mean, you can on national television.
They are
deny
not.
facts all the time.
They
You've
are
done it
not.
a couple times in this very episode.
I still want to know how you're going to enforce your language edicts on me.
We'll take that up.
How are we going to enforce it?
We're going to take that.
So Caskey originally makes the claim that you can't say illegal alien anymore. And when Scott says why, he then says, well, because ICE is targeting U.S. citizens, which is not true. And they said, well, if they're arresting U.S. citizens, who are breaking the law. Federal law enforcement has that right under federal law. And then he gets into the speech thing. That isn't the most interesting statement from Caskey in the evening. He also decided to play this game, which a lot of the online influencers do, where they decide that because they really want to believe something, that makes it true. There's a lot of the online influencery crowd on social media who play this game, where like week one, they'll say, you know what, I don't know if I really trust the narrative around what's happened here. And then week two, it's, I wonder if Israel had anything to do with it. Week three, it's, I know for a fact Israel is doing this everywhere. They were outside in my backyard last night. That kind of behavior. We see this with the Epstein file stuff as well. So here is Cameron Caskey forgetting he's on network television, and things that you say on certain places, in certain places, especially as a public figure, those do in fact have and carry consequences.
And he's basically playing risk because people hurt his feelings, or people ostensibly hurt his feelings. So I am appreciative that the president is being transparent about this. I would love it if he was more transparent about the human sex trafficking network that he was a part of. But
oh boy,
you can't win them all.
Cameron's grateful that the president is being transparent about the Nobel Peace Prize and his desires for Greenland. Scott, what do you think about that?
I love the fill-in for Abby going, yes, Cameron is grateful. What do you think about that, Scott? It's like, oh, good heavens, what did he just say?
You going to let that sit? Are we going to claim here on CNN that the president is part of a global sex trafficking ring, or?
Well,
I mean,
we're going to talk about the Epstein file. Scott, I will do the fact checking as we go along here.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I will do the fact checking as we go along here. Well, you didn't just then and there. And again, a statement has been made on your network as a part of the panel on the network. You have levied a very specific criminal claim about an individual that carries with it to the audience significant repercussions for a number of what would be considered damages in a courtroom.
Repeat what you said about the global sex trafficking ring.
That Donald Trump was provably very involved with it.
Double down. Okay. Provably very involved with it. All righty here. Okie dokie.
Okay. We'll get to that later. I mean, Donald Trump has never been charged with any crimes in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. But I like the butts throwing in there. Then Cameron decides to cut him off and say, no, you shall not. I'm determined to fit my sneakers into my mouth. You won't stand in my way. Well, we'll talk.
No one stands in my way but me.
We'll talk about that.
Let's be serious.
Satisfied?
Yes, and I do appreciate the music coming up here. He then posts on X later, that being today, yesterday evening. He posted, "I would like to retract my comments from CNN last night and truly apologize. Donald Trump was obviously not involved with the giant international sex trafficking ring where women and children were systematically raped by elites. I said that by accident, and I didn't mean it." So it's very, very likely that his lawyer, I sure hope to God it was his lawyer. Otherwise, he either needs a new lawyer, or if you're going on media that much, get a lawyer. I have a lawyer. Get a lawyer. You go on media, you're a correspondent, you're making statements, have a lawyer. Have someone who watches your stuff. I have a production team that watches the stuff that I say. Absolutely. Keep an eye on that, for sure. His lawyer likely said, you can't do that. Donald Trump has a history of winning big when people defame him on these particular things. You can't do that. Now, Kasky made a particular error here in which he didn't just say, I'd like to retract my comments. Here is the fact. That's all he has to say. I'm going to retract my comments. I apologize. Trump was obviously not involved. There you go. He didn't do that, though. He added at the end, I said that by accident, and I didn't mean it. Well, no. You doubled down. You said it multiple times in the segment. You said provably. You made it clear you were not joking. You made it clear that you meant it. Because when the guy who could, in this particular argument, be on your side tried to say, you really want to say that? You're like, yes, I do. I'll say it twice, 3 times. I read it on the internet. One of the Krasenstein brothers tweeted about it. Those never get retracted or deleted. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb, y'all. Yeah, I agree with the comments. Like, yeah, absolutely not an accident. Everyone knows this. It's not exactly something difficult. On the line of the Epstein information, one might say, the House Oversight Committee, in a bipartisan vote, voted to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for not showing up for their subpoena. This now will go to the House of Representatives for a general vote, I believe, is the next step here. Here's James Comer, chair of the Oversight Committee on that.
The question is now on favorably reporting the William J. Clinton contempt report as amended. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The clerk will now open the vote on the William J. Clinton contempt report.
This is C-SPAN, so there's no cutting. We all just sit there and kind of wait pseudo awkwardly for the files to be found.
Does any member wish to change their vote? The clerk will close the vote and report the vote total.
I love Robert's Rules of Order, don't you? So now, I believe, and this is, notice how I am saying I believe. The next step is that this goes to the House for a vote in total. The reason I say I believe is I'm not sure if there's another procedural step where the speaker has to schedule it, or it is the committee chair doing so that sets it on the schedule. That's what I'm not sure. And so unlike some individuals, I'm going to make it clear what I do and do not know for certain. Excellent stuff. So that said, I do want to point out one other incredible thing before we get to something I've wanted to touch on since the weekend here. Virginia, now that the state legislature is back in control of the Democrats, now that Abigail Spanberger is the governor of Virginia, one of the bills they have introduced, and I want to make sure I get this up on the screen because it is truly astounding. In the 2026 session, House Bill number 1369, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Article 1 of Chapter 6 of Title 2.2, a section relating to the state emergency administration of federal funds. Be it enacted by the General Assembly of Virginia that no state agency responsible for the administration of federal funds shall impose a requirement on a nonprofit charitable organization providing a federal public benefit to determine, verify, or otherwise require proof of eligibility of any applicant for such benefits. Sweet baby Moses in a basket floating down the Nile. One of the first bills introduced by the Democrats in the Virginia state legislature for this year, now that they are back in control, is to forbid anyone receiving money from the federal government into the Commonwealth of Virginia, anyone at all, anybody who gets money from the feds or from Virginia in these grant programs is exempt from any kind of check on proving they're eligible. So yes, you out there, anyone in Virginia, if this bill passes, and I sure hope to God that it does not, I encourage you to sign up for a grant. Doesn't matter whether you're eligible or not. According to this statute, that if passed would become the law of Virginia, this particular bill, no one would be allowed to ask you if you were eligible to receive federal or state funds. This would legalize fraud in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Legalize it completely and fully. I mean, when they tell you who they are, by all means, believe them. Believe them. Amid that, there's a little note over from producer Jen here. A new audit has found that Washington State's Department of Children, Youth, and Families gave away $500 million without adequate controls. And what happened? $2 million of those dollars, at least, was discovered in overpayments. There were no provider records for 4 years. According to the Washington State's Department of Children, Youth, and Families, the state auditor went 4 years without any sort of provider records. Their words, not mine. Gee, it's almost like when you say, hey, here's a big bucket of money. We're not going to ask you why you're coming to the bucket of money. Gee whiz, it turns out that the honor system on Halloween candy ends up like the Halloween candy honor system. People just come in and they don't take one piece of candy, two pieces of candy. They reach in there and they grab candy and they put it in the bowl. If you are going to be stupid, at least be quiet. Do not get out there and advertise your stupidity. Better to be thought a fool and remain silent than to speak out and remove all doubt. If the Democrats believe this is the way to move into 2026, to double down on illegal immigration and violence towards federal law enforcement, and then double down on the protection of fraud, Chuck Schumer also promising if they get control of the House and the Senate, they're going to 100% reverse every single cut from the Trump administration. He didn't say, well, actually, it's a good thing that we cut out the transgender education and theater programs in South America. No, that's coming back. Presto. Okie dokie. Good luck to you. All right, we're going to do just a bit of bonus tonus because I have neglected to talk about this last night. My blood was boiling over the situation regarding the church in Minneapolis and the raid by the anti-ICE protesters and rioters and Don Lemon. So I didn't really get a chance to talk about this. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled at the victory by Indiana University on Monday. I'm beyond thrilled. Now, to be quite clear, I grew up in a household, my dad, Notre Dame Irish fan. I love watching Irish football, by the way. My grandmother, huge Purdue fan, very close with. Loves Purdue, basketball, football, huge fan of it. For a long time, although I love IU basketball, watching IU football was very painful. And it was very painful for me, especially because an individual whom I had grown up with, went to the same tiny Christian college as, a very, very fine Coach Allen. He was the coach right before Coach Sig. And it was awful watching IU get truly slaughtered in some of those matches while Tommy Allen was coaching at IU. More so because I love Tommy. I think he's a wonderful man. Christ-like man as well. And to see Coach Curt Cignetti come in and do what he did with that program was nothing less than astronomically phenomenal. So, comes in, addresses the program. People immediately ask, what are you going to do here? What's so special? You're coming in from JMU. What's so great about you? How are you going to turn around the worst major college football program in the country? And his response,
yeah, it's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
That set the stage. That set the stage for a man who was not satisfied in the first season, only losing 2 games, coming back this season. And I can happily say, although I had to catch one game a little bit later, I had the pleasure of watching every single season game in this college football season. It was fantastic. Hemby and Black as running backs were unstoppable. Fernando Mendoza is just incredible. I mean, Fernando Mendoza is a wonderful guy, Christ-like guy, never stopped to give a comment without first giving the glory to God, without honoring his mother and his father. Their story as a family is also incredible, very deserving of the Heisman. And the entire time the season was going on, some of it understandably, there was all of this nonsense from the rest of the country because Indiana had its reputation of having a really bad football program. That, once they got to Alabama, they were going to learn, or once they got to Ohio State, they were going to learn, or man, wait until the SEC tears into them. And all of these hypothetical wins for the SEC, which have evaporated. The Indiana Hoosiers continued to focus on the fundamentals. Every opportunity that Scataglia had to blame things on, other outside events, to get cocky, to celebrate early on things, even the Big Ten victory. Very, very brief smile, held up the trophy. That was it. Time for the playoffs. Getting in there, not commenting on the Notre Dame chaos, not commenting on the upcoming matches, just focused. In fact, the only criticisms that he uttered were that his own players weren't taking things seriously or that practices weren't going very well. Right before the big match with Miami, he said that all of the seniors on his team were really sentimental and they had to get rid of that because it was time for war. You don't go to war with milk and cookies. Incredible. Incredible. For the record, when I mentioned Scataglia during like the normal part of the show, the news and the analysis, the reason I mention him is I truly want members of the administration to act like Kurt Scataglia, like Tom Homan. They're not satisfied until the job is done. They're not here to do, little photo shoots and memes and exciting stuff, although there's a time and a place for that. They are here. They're not celebrating until the job is done. There is work to be done. I'll also say this. I didn't get this clip pulled. I also admire that according to his own interview, Scataglia, who was on a 10-year contract, plans to retire in Indiana with his wife. And he is particularly thrilled that the people of Indiana have been so kind to him and his wife. And that's true. If it was up to me, I would buy that man a lifetime of whatever beer he wanted supply for the rest of his life. If the independent fundamental Baptist is willing to buy you cases of beer, you've won him over. I mean, just incredible. And that brings us to the national championship game. Miami, true to its reputation from the 80s, brought out the most thuggish players I have seen on a college gridiron in quite a while. Quite a while. I mean, my goodness. They bloodied Mendoza's lip first half. The refs were doing a pathetic job of calling. I guess really awful eyesight in the Big 12 is absolutely not just a stereotype, but it is a provable thing. The Big 12 is where they got those particular refs from. And at the halftime, I saw Scataglia do something I had never, ever seen before. He criticized the refs. He criticized the calls. I've never seen that. He never talks about that. He's always focused on the game, what they're going to do next. And Scataglia answering this question, I honestly thought Scataglia might take his belt off and go beat the referees and the cornerbacks as well that were doing such lovely pass interference. And I guess one of their safeties as well. Anyway, here was Scataglia at the half in the college championship.
Eddie, they're hitting your quarterback. How is that impacting your offense and his ability to get into a rhythm?
Well, there's 3 personal fouls on the quarterback not called in one drive that need to be called because they're obvious personal fouls. I'm all for letting them play, but when you cross the line, you got to call it. And they were black and white calls. So we got some third down conversions on cross against double mug. That's helped. We got a 2-score lead. Defense hadn't let them in the end zone or on the scoreboard. We'll get the ball first. Sure, it'd be nice to go down there and score a touchdown.
They're up 10-0 on Miami at the half. And that's his attitude. That's his attitude. And they came forward. And again, there was incredible interception. The best play, not only the best play after already getting the Heisman. One of the most incredible, I mean, goodness gracious, as far as a QB sneak is concerned, I don't think I've ever seen one this impressive. Now, admittedly,
I much prefer college football and basketball over the professional sports. So if I say something and there's like some incredible like NFL QB sneak from ages past that's just far more incredible than this, I apologize. But in this case, one of the most incredible plays I've ever seen. If you've watched the game, of course, you know the one I'm talking about. If you've been on social media, you know the one I'm talking about. It's when Mendoza decides now is the time, after a very weird first down run strategy that would either work phenomenally or get like half a yard or even get shoved back a little bit. A couple of third down passes that were also a little rough, given Miami's cornerback, who did come back into play after the first half and was just a menace. I mean, I've never seen the Hoosiers backfield violated like that since, well, Cignetti wasn't coaching. Here's the play that will live on just for history.
He's going to take off and run. Mendoza weaves his way first and goal, diving toward the end zone. Touchdown!
Incredible to watch a play that is going to be turned into a statue somewhere, somehow. So just fantastic season to the Hoosiers. Amazing, beautifully done. I had the opportunity at the end of the game to get a chance to talk to Senator Jim Banks, who was at the game with President Trump. Really excellent stuff. And again, just as a Hoosier, here at the end of end of the show, end of the bonus tonus section of things, just for me to you wanted to say kind of cool stuff there. Now there is a little bit of a breaking update. I should be careful before I say breaking update here. An update from the House Republicans on federal charges regarding U.S. Representative Sheila McCormick being charged with stealing $5 million in federal COVID funds. I think you will likely see a censure vote. That's what's being floated right now. I think you'll see a censure vote in the next couple of days for her. I don't think it's going to go through because the House has shown itself incapable of censuring anyone. Doesn't matter whether they've assaulted officers like Representative LaMonica McIver had done, or whether it's Representative Sheila McCormick, who appears to have stolen $5 million, again, waiting for that particular series of charges to be confirmed. I will say there was a funny moment from the House of Representatives today when Representative Eli Crane and LaMonica McIver got into it over this. I will play this because it'll be stale by tomorrow, but it is truly amazing. Getting into a fight over, her fight.
Mr. Crane, I don't know what your obsession is.
I thought you were supposed to address the chair.
I'm so tired of you mentioning me. And
Mr. Chairman, is she supposed to address me or the chair?
Put it to the people of Arizona, not me.
Yeah, well,
if
you quit assaulting ICE agents, I wouldn't keep bringing you up.
I am reclaiming my time.
Will come to order.
Watch your mouth when
Follow
you're talking
the rules
about
of the committee. Order. McIver.
Excuse me, I'm reclaiming my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. Let me get to the business that I'm here for the people of New Jersey, not Mr. Crane. Thank you for holding today's hearing.
Okay, cool fun facts regarding how things are supposed to work in the House and the Senate. You are not supposed to address people by their name. You are supposed to say the gentle lady or the representative or the honored representative or the madam or the woman, etc., from the state of New Jersey, or the gentleman from Arizona. You're not supposed to pronounce their name. That's not how it works. There are cases in which that's acceptable. In this particular committee, no. And so he's like, well, since you're going to get out here, you don't know what you're doing. You're just out here playing games. I'm going to remind everyone yet again, you assaulted a federal officer. And then her response was to say, watch your mouth, which, I mean, given her history as the Kool-Aid man, one might think it's not entirely outside of the realm that she might get violent because she's done it before. So those things said, we will talk about some more of the news and the nonsense tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, especially if you're out in the areas getting hit by the snowstorm like in North Carolina. Stay safe, and we will catch you tomorrow. Same great time, 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.